Jules, let's stick with Hojlund because obviously we saw him. I think he played the last 10 minutes against Palace, and you expected him to start last night. He didn't. We were talking off air, and you said, "Well, he's not going to start against Spurs."
Yeah, I would not think so.
Obviously, bigger body. Maybe you ease him back into it. Let me just talk a bit about the implications of having Hojlund versus Zirkzee because they're both big, strong boys who come from Serie A, but they have very, very different skill sets.
Yeah, and so it depends how you want to play if you're Erik Ten Hag. But does he know how he wants to play?
No, let's not forget. What if Erik Ten Hag calls you up on the phone? Yes, Jules, you always criticize me. What should my front three be? Front four. Like, I play Bruno, right? Yes?
Yeah, you have to play Bruno, Garnacho, and Rashford for me. So then it's whoever the number 9 that you want. If Zirkzee...
No, which do you want?
Personally...
Tell me about games, opponent scenarios. What would you work on?
So I think for a game like this, Spurs game at the weekend, for example, but overall, I love Hojlund if Hojlund is fit ahead of Zirkzee. I love Zirkzee. I think he's a lovely, lovely footballer, lovely ball player. There's a chance that he makes for himself yesterday where he comes short, he plays this little 1-2 with Bruno, then the step over and then the shot with his left foot. This is what he does. He's not a clinical finisher. This is not what he does. He's not an in-and-out number 9, but he has so much to his game. He's got such a great asset of great vision, linking up play, technical abilities, lovely, better than Hojlund. And I think that counts. But I think in a team like this, with the wingers that they have, with the ball that goes wide a lot very quickly, for them to go one-on-one, I think it's maybe more important to have a presence in the box like Hojlund than to have Zirkzee. And also, I think people criticize Hojlund's link-up play, and it's not as bad as a lot of people make it to be. So I would work with Hojlund. Certainly wouldn't have spent the money on Zirkzee in the summer. And I know Hojlund has fitness issues regularly, which is a problem. But let's say that he's fully fit for the whole season. I think there's much more to come from him in a team like this. So if I was the coach of this team, I would have Hojlund ahead of Zirkzee.
Yeah, I think Hojlund is also much more plug and play in the sense that he is a much more traditional center forward. And as you said, it's easier for the wingers to dialogue with him. I think it's a lot easier for Bruno to dialogue with him as well. Zirkzee gives you a lot more unpredictability. Zirkzee maybe even has a higher upside than Hojlund, potentially. You scratch the surface simply because of his vision and his technical ability. But it's going to take time to build chemistry with Zirkzee because if you're a winger, you expect Zirkzee to be in one place, and he's not. You expect Zirkzee to do one move, and then boom, he gives you the ball.
Very true.
I think the reason he stuck with Zirkzee for so long, other than Hojlund being injured, but he had other options. He could have played Rashford up front if he wanted to change things around earlier in the season, is that he thinks it's important to build this chemistry. And I think particularly probably the Zirkzee-Bruno chemistry, simply because, Bruno obviously does his own thing on the pitch a lot of the time. And for him to get on the same wavelength at Zirkzee, so have that kind of multiplier effect. I do think in the shorter term, once Hojlund is fit, you expect Hojlund to play, or I would expect Hojlund to play because the games come so thick and fast at this stage. You just don't have the time.
Yeah, true. I mean, in a very selfish way, personally, I would love to see a Hojlund-Zirkzee partnership, and if that could work, it might not work. But I could find it interesting that Zirkzee has a focal point next to him, can have a bit of freedom. Obviously, there's a problem then with Bruno and where you play Bruno, but I think a Zirkzee-Hojlund front two could be quite fun to watch and maybe quite fun to work with if you were United with two wide players. But yeah, I think even for Bruno, I think Hojlund is a better player to have in front of him than Zirkzee. I think just for the passes and to have that guy in the box that you're going to try to find with incredible passes like Bruno can do.
You could. That's a really interesting one, but that's never going to happen as long as Bruno's there. Because
definitely not.
Even it means sacrificing your wingers. I suppose you could go 4-3-2-1 or 4-3-1-2 or whatever, but then you sacrifice your wingers, which is stupid. When
it would be a 4-4-2, but they would know. Or Bruno would have to play really, really deep then.
Which again, not really a good idea with Bruno. I want to touch upon the midfield before we get to Rashford. If we had to think base formation, big game for United, is it Kobe and and Ugarte or Kobe and Casemiro? Like, where do you think Casemiro is right now in Ten Hag's view?
I don't know. I think he's probably somewhere in the cellar, around the cellar, like, quite deep in the house, because you would have thought there might be games where you can bring him back after the Liverpool nightmare that he had and just bring him back into the team. And that hasn't really been the case. I was glad to see Ugarte starting last night. I thought he did okay. I think the 7 recoveries, it's him that breaks that attack on the goal from 20, because the guy literally ran past everybody until Ugarte makes that tackle, and then Eriksen recovers the ball. And okay, it's not Ugarte's fault. Then Eriksen just has a brain freeze and loses it there. But this is what he does, and this is what we've already explained with him. And then not long after, towards the end, he tries a shot from the edge of the box that goes on the M6 or the M1 or whatever motorway it is. So that's not what he does. He can't do that, but he can do other things really well. So I'm glad to see it, and I think he should be quite soonish, ready for a Premier League game. I'm not sure if Spurs comes a little bit too early, maybe for him, because he's going to be quite intense, and I would expect end-to-end with Spurs, Old Trafford. I don't know if you can play him in that, but you certainly can't play Eriksen in that game either, because he's going to get overrun by Maddison and by Kulusevski and by Bentancur and all those guys. So,
and bringing back Casemiro maybe not really an option.
Maybe not for that. So I would expect an Ugarte, Mainu double pivot for the Spurs game on Sunday.
Which I think is okay if you're going to be defensive and play in transition. But I guess that's kind of what we come to expect. You 4 attack, and the rest of us maybe some help from the fullbacks.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be quite a super interesting game, I think.
Right. Where are we on the Rashford issue? Because we talked about, some people made a big deal of the fact that he was dropped. As I said on Monday, Ten Hag wasn't clear with his pre-game interview. Yeah. Frankly, I mean, he might have explained it, but you have to realize, and United need to realize, that you can parse stuff. And when he speaks in the present tense rather than the past tense about lifestyle, you're not helping things, right?
Yeah.
Does he? But he looks well ahead, at least to me.
He was the best player yesterday. Yeah, I thought he was a threat with the ball. I mean, that elastico nutmeg is filthy. Marcus, this is filthy. This was beautiful.
So why can't we put this among the list of good things?
Because this is just a Marcus Rashford positive. It's nothing to do with his coach or his team. Like I said on the FC show, on Saturday night, I didn't understand why he was dropped or why he was rested for the Crystal Palace game. It didn't make any sense to me. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think they need him so badly. This is a team that scored 5 goals in 5 league games. 5. The goal difference is 0. 0 gap. I mean, last season it was 0 at the end of the season. This is where they are. There's been no improvement despite spending a ton of money in the summer. There's still no improvement from last season. They need Rashford at his best if they want to do something this season.
I think Mazraoui's had a good start to the season. We're talking about no improvement.
Yeah.
I think ideally this is a spot in the season where, you might want to rotate your fullbacks a little bit, but he can't do that because his other fullbacks are Malacia and Shaw, who are kind of
out forever. Yeah.
Yeah. Lindelof, we probably don't want to be seeing either, but who's also hurt. De Ligt, I think, is a slow burn, but I think he can help. He didn't play last night. We saw Maguire. I don't think Maguire was terrible.
No.
But again, you're not building anything there because obviously he's out of contract. And we're still waiting on your boy Lenny.
There's a long way to go still for him. But I don't know. I just think that by now you would not be 11th in the table. You would not be not able to beat 20 at Old Trafford. And they were booed, and rightly so. And for me, I don't think Ten Hag should be there. I don't think he deserves to be there. I don't think he earned the right to be there, even winning the FA Cup.
But he got his extension.
Well, yeah, he did. So let's see. I do think, though, if they lose this weekend against Spurs, then they go away to Porto in the Europa League. Then it's Aston Villa away in the league. 3 games like that. Let's see next week how many points or what those 3 results are. But I think it could be under massive, massive pressure going into the international break after that.
Yeah, and I also think the schedule, when they look ahead, what might actually, if those games go wrong, what might actually help them is that the schedule after that gets even worse for United before it gets better. And it's the old maxim where, coaches, before a tough spell, clubs like to let the coach they're going to sack stay. I don't know, but you're right. These 3 games, you need to see progress. I think Hojlund is a big, let's say, alibi or mitigating factor for Ten Hag.